So good afternoon. We're going to work this afternoon with perpendicular lines. Now remember, perpendicular lines are two lines that intersect, but they have a special intersection. That intersection forms what we call a right angle. So an example would be something like this. See how we have these two lines that cross, and they have this special intersection which we call a right angle there. So they intersect in a very special way. So look at this problem here. We have we want to graph the line that passes through the point 0, 5 and is perpendicular to the given line. So we have this point 0, 5, and we have a line over here that's given, and we want to draw a line that is perpendicular. So we know it's got to come across here somehow like this to form a right angle. Now, just like with parallel lines, we said that there's a relationship between those slopes. If two lines are parallel, those slopes had to be the same. Well, if the slopes are perpendicular, again, we have this symbol here that oftentimes used for perpendicular. So perpendicular slopes are what we call opposite reciprocals. So if I can find the slope of this line, if I can determine the slope of this line, that slope will allow me to determine the slope of the line that I'm looking for. So we marked 2 points on the line, and we know that we can find our slope if we know 2 points on a line. So it looks like this ordered pair is looks like 4, -3. And this other point would be 6, 2. So I can actually use the graph if I want. Remember, slope is rise over run. So slope is that rise over the run. That's our slope. So I could start at this point and rise up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and run over 2. So it looks like my slope is 5 over 2. So, and that makes sense because it looks like we have an increasing slope. It is a positive direction. That's kind of my mountain climber guy, so that's looking pretty good. Now if I wanted to, I could also use the table. So I could write down 6, 2 is 1 point, 4, -3 is the other point. And you can kind of see that there's a change in the y's. That's an increase, actually that's a decrease of 5. And that's also a decrease of 2. So you could have -5 over -2, which would be 5/2. And don't forget, we also have our slope formula that says m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I can also use my slope formula. So I have, pick whichever point, I call this point 1, point 2. So 2, take away a -3. So I can call this point 2 and this is point 1, so let's just label that. So x2, y2, and this could be x1, y1. So y2 minus y1, so 2 take away a -3 over then 6 minus 4. So I did get 2 plus 3 on the top. 6 minus 4 is 2. We do indeed get 5/2. So what we are going to say here then, if I know slope 1, slope 2, let me try to write that out a little better. So my slope for the second line is going to be the opposite reciprocal of the first slope. So if I know what the slope of this line is, which we said is 5/2, the slope of my line, the second slope then, so if I call this slope 1, the slope of the second line, what this tells me to do is take the opposite of 5/2, which is -5/2, and then I also have to flip it. So I need to reciprocate it. So that means I flip the fraction, so it's going to end up being a -2/5. So that's what we mean by opposite reciprocals. So if I know the slope of line 1, if I change its sign and flip it, that's going to give me the slope of the second line. Or in other words, the line that's going to be perpendicular. So from this point, I've got a rise of down 2 and a run of 5. So from this point, if I go down 2 and run 5, I can make another point. And if I draw the line through those 2 points, it should be perpendicular to the given line. So when I draw that line, this should be a right angle there. And that looks pretty good for a sketch there. My straight edge seems to be a little warped for some reason, but yeah, I think that's got the job done there. So a key thing to pick up on is when we're talking about perpendicular lines and their slopes, those slopes are what we call opposite reciprocals of each other. So we can kind of do this number on it. So if I have a slope, if I change its sign and flip it, I can find what we call the perpendicular slope. So this would be the perpendicular slope, if you will. So this is going to be our perpendicular slope. Okay. So hopefully that helps out a little bit. Stay tuned. Let's see what our next lesson is going to be.